So we'll continue with metta, compassion, Brahma Viharas, the four aspect of the four facades of unconditional love. So the last session we talked about the metta chant, where we chant to remind ourselves of love. And so there's another chant in the early Buddhist tradition, the universal metta chant. So this is more of making aspiration. May I be free from enmity and danger. May I be free from mental suffering. May I be free from physical suffering. So when you read this, you read it with a lot of wishing yourself wellness, and feeling that wellness, that wellness, that love within you. So aspirations are actually important. Why? Because aspiration is intention. So when you read this chant, you're actually intending for yourself to be well, to be happy, for your parents to be well, to be happy, for all dharma farers to be well and happy. So that is the power of thought. So if you remember the 12 links of dependent origination, the power of thought, from mental formations all the way to action to rebirth, that's how powerful thoughts are. And if you're not aware of your thoughts, or if you have very, very busy short attention span and many, many thoughts that pass through your mind and you're always blur, then it's very hard to make intentions, because intentions are powerful. Intentions are thoughts that have become belief, and when you read aspirations enough, they become intention. But don't read it like a robot, read it with real sincerity, because thought and feelings, when they come together, it can become something real. Okay, let me repeat. Thought supported by feelings, okay, at this very moment, can become an experience in the next moment, right? So let me repeat again. There's no one here except feelings and thoughts, okay? So next slide, let's see what's next. So metta can go beyond safeguarding goodwill or love, goodwill in our hearts. Yeah, so you see, in Theravada Buddhism, a lot of emphasis is on wisdom, okay? But the Buddha is a very, very wise man, and it's from wisdom that he liberated his heart and mind. But the sharing itself, okay, the teaching itself contains so much compassion and love. So the energy of the Buddha is love and compassion. Yeah, the realization is wisdom. So again, we are actually already the Buddha. We are already of the Buddha nature, but we don't realize it. So when you practice, don't think that there is something to attain, because that will be no different from you doing Dharma work as a job, trying to get something, right? So when you do it that way, you're never going to attain anything, because you already are, all right? So let me get back to this, okay? So in early Buddhist tradition, there is the emphasis of compassion, but maybe its emphasis is not as big as that of the Mahayana or the Tibetan Buddhists, okay? So the Mahayana tradition emphasized a lot of compassion, and later when we look at the Noble Eightfold Path in the big picture, you understand why. Yeah, so let's read this. What makes a good friend? Advice to Sigalaka. Okay, Long Discourse 31, the Buddha said, Householder's son, you should recognize these four good-hearted friends: the helper, the friend in good times and bad, the counselor, and the one who's compassionate. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a helper on four grounds. They guard you when you're negligent. They guard your property when you're negligent. They keep you safe in times of danger. When something needs doing, they provide you with twice the money you need. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a helper on these four grounds. Okay. So I didn't take the whole of the sutta. You can go and read it yourself. I'm just talking about the helper here. Then he said, you can recognize a good-hearted friend who's the same in good times and bad times on four grounds. What are they? They tell you secrets. They keep your secrets. They don't abandon you in times of trouble. They'll even give their life for your welfare. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's the same in good times and bad on these four grounds. So you see, I highlighted in blue, right? They keep you safe in times of danger. They even give their life for your welfare. You know, in the Visuddhimagga, which is you see the four Pali canon, the early Buddha Sutra is 4 books thicker than the Bible. The Visuddhimagga would be equivalent to the Bhagavad Gita, which is a condensed version of the Hindu text. Hindus also have 4 texts. Okay, the Brahmins have 4 texts. So the Rig Veda, and the other 3 I can't remember. Right. So Visuddhimagga is a commentary on the early Buddhist Pali canon in the Theravada school. And it was said that 4 persons went on a road trip and they met bandits. Okay, so one person brought 3 persons with him. 1 person he liked, 1 he disliked, 1 he's neutral about, including himself. And then the bandits say, if you would sacrifice 1 person, I will let the other 3 go. So the story goes, I mean, I didn't read this, I heard this from a monk. So the story goes that, you shouldn't sacrifice anyone because that's wisdom. But here, the Buddha actually in the Pali canon says that, they'll even give their life for your welfare, right? So in that story, the 3 person you take along, right, I shared this with a mindfulness group and they said, well, of course I'll throw the person whom I hate, right? Because you bring somebody you like, somebody you neutral, somebody you hate. So of course you throw the one you hate to the robbers, right? Then you spare yourself and the other person you like and the neutral person. That's very funny. But actually in real compassion, in real faith, okay, true faith includes courage. Yeah, faith of what the Buddha taught, faith in the Buddha. If you have such faith, you wouldn't mind giving yourself up. Okay, this is what it's trying to say here. So of course, first we try to negotiate, keep everybody safe. Of course, that's the first thing. But if it comes down to it, right, if you truly have faith and have courage, okay, and you have faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, you are willing to give yourself up. That's what this verse is saying. Renunciation through goodwill, okay, goodwill, love, kindness. If you deny that greed, fear, or other such contracted emotions, so unwholesome emotions are contracted. Contracted means that it's closed up. You can feel your body tense up, right? So anytime you got greed, hate, and delusion, it means that your body is tense. Okay, there's different level of tension. You got to be sensitive to your body to know. And that means there is dukkha. Dukkha means what? Dukkha means stress, means contraction, means your body is contracted through contracted emotions. So our habitual tendency is to push them away because we don't like the contracted emotions, the tension. But you see, by pushing them away, you are contracting your body even more, right? See, when you're stressed, you breathe harder, your breath is shorter. So you know there's tension. So the more you try to push unpleasant feelings away, the more you're tightening your abdomen, the more tension you bring to yourself. Okay, so this is unskillful way of working with the greed, hatred, and delusion. So what is the skillful way of working with greed, hatred, and delusion, or working with stress or dukkha? When you feel tension, when you feel anxiety, the way to work with them is preferably you already have some meditative stillness through your meditation, meaning you're able to pause, right? People who don't meditate or who are terrible at meditation, they don't have the ability to take a pause, right? To pause your thoughts, pause, come back to the present and look at it. Okay, so if you have that ability, you can look at what's happening to your body now in tension. You can pause and be aware of the body that is contracted and stay present with the tension. See it for what it is, and then you can say, well, no, you're not the boss. Right? Who's not the boss? The conditions not the boss because they're impermanent. Come back to the present and say it. And tell yourself, I choose love. I choose compassion. I choose compassion for myself. I choose love. In life, we seldom get what we want. Who wants to fall sick? Who wants to feel pain in the body? Who wants to die? Yeah. And who doesn't want to be very good at their hobby and then make their hobby as a business and then earn money from them? Who doesn't want that? But so few people get it. So few people get what they want. So it's no point trying to bash yourself up and think that you're not meeting your expectations, because remember, expectation is a condition, is another mental formation. And every time, I just want to emphasize this, thinking itself, thought itself, whether good or bad, there is always tension. Just that when you have good thoughts, you don't feel that tension that much. What is no tension? When you let go of all thoughts. Okay, all right. So anyway, when you feel tension in your body, in your emotions, stop. Look at it for what it is. Right now, I'm facing a condition I dislike. It brings me anxiety. I acknowledge this anxiety. I don't need to go deeper and think further things that will scare myself. I see the way things are. I cannot escape whatever's happening to me, because in the end, we're all gonna die. So instead, I choose to be compassionate for my fear and anxiety, because nobody can feel what I'm feeling. Okay, my loved ones don't know what anxiety is. They cannot give me the compassion that I expect from them. Who else can give me compassion except myself? So a lot of times we expect others to love us, to give us compassion, but actually many a times they can't, because no one can really know your pain. No one can really know your anxiety. Of course, there are other people, just like Alcohol Anonymous, people who suffer for alcoholism, they'll understand. But right now, if you are feeling it, you can't grab the next person and ask, hey, right, I'm suffering anxiety. Do you know what is anxiety? Can you calm me down? That's not gonna happen, right? Even your husband or your sister or your brother or your wife may not know what it is, and they're the closest to you. So how? How can you expect them to give you the compassion you need? You can ask them for it, but some people are just not empathetic. They just can't give you. Even if they were to give you, let me tell you this, nothing beats having compassion and love for yourself, right? So this practice is really not difficult. It's very simple and straightforward. If you're a straightforward person, it's not difficult to practice. If you are the kind not straightforward, tell you something and you think a million things, then this practice will be very hard for you, okay? Right. So perhaps 100 times a day, just watch negative emotions arise, and instead of fearing them, be able to simply say, no, you're not the boss. You have arisen because of conditions, and our whole space, our whole love and compassion for you until the conditions dissolve. And when the conditions dissolve, what remains? Just space and awareness. Alright, so this is a bit more higher level. You have to have certain meditative experience, but if you don't have that meditative experience of awareness you can at least stop and recognize this is something happening that you don't want. What the Buddha said, first noble truth, it happens to everyone, no one is exempt. All right, then you can give yourself compassion. So this slide is from my teacher Aaron. He's a wonderful teacher. Without Aaron's guidance, I wouldn't have been able to understand the Dharma as deeply. Alright, so the hardest situations in maintaining love and compassion, the hardest, okay, the Buddha said. The Buddha explicitly recommended developing thoughts of love in two situations where it's especially important. They are to maintain skillful motivation when others are hurting you, and when you realize you have hurt others. Okay, so when others are hurting you, you must have compassion for yourself, love. When you have hurt others, you also must have compassion when you realize you have hurt others. A lot of time we realize we hurt others, we just want to cover our face and run away, right? No, you face up to it with compassion for yourself and you go apologize to that person when you're ready, okay? So if others are harming you with their words or action, even if bandits were to carve you up savagely, limb by limb, with a two-handed saw, this is what the Buddha said, bandits were to cut your limb one by one. The Buddha recommends training your mind in this way. Our minds will be unaffected. We will say no evil words. We will remain sympathetic, means compassionate. Sympathetic is not really the word here. I will use compassionate, empathetic. Because the near enemy of compassion is sympathy, right? No. So actually, yeah, you want empathy. So this translation, I'm not sure. I took it from Bhikkhu Thanisaro. So I think there are 2 points. I differ from him. Not that he's wrong, not that I'm right. Okay. On goodwill, to me, is love. Sympathetic is a close enemy of compassion. So I would say empathy. Empathy is more equanimous, right? We will remain empathetic with a mind of compassion, with no inner hate. We will keep pervading these people who have hurt us with an awareness imbued with love. So sorry, I'm changing his translation here. I mean his words here. Goodwill for me is love. Okay? But really, there's no right or wrong words. Take whatever words that suit you. Okay? Works for you. For me, right? Love works for me. And beginning with them, we will keep pervading the all-encompassing world with an awareness imbued with love. Abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from hostility, free from ill will. So I can understand why he used the word goodwill. Because love, some people misunderstand it as that kind of attached love, that kind of greedy love. No, we're not talking about that kind of love. I'm talking about universal love. Big love, okay, that doesn't contain just one or a few people. Isn't it sad that love can only contain a few people in our world, where people hurt our family, we only protect our own family, but we cannot help a stranger? Isn't that sad? Universal love is what help to remove suffering in our world. Let me continue. In doing this, the Buddha says, you make your mind as spacious. Just now Aaron said spacious. You make your mind as expansive, spacious, open. Give you a few synonyms here. As the river Ganges, or as large as the earth. You see, universal love. Universal love requires a heart that is so big, it doesn't contract. When we contract, it's usually greed for ourselves. We want something good for ourselves. Where there's hate for others who's harming us, or a condition that's harming us, then that heart is not expansive. So this is an expansive heart. It cannot be, it's a spacious heart. It cannot be, made smaller, right? So in other words, larger than the harm those people are doing or threatening to do you. So this is universal love with that open, wide awareness, okay? Spacious. Okay? As for the times when you realize you have harmed others, the Buddha recommends that you understand that remorse is not going to undo the harm you have done to others. Okay, you feel remorseful, but you still need to take an action when you're ready, not force yourself, otherwise you'll come across very fake. Okay, so if an apology is appropriate, you apologize. In any case, you resolve not to repeat the harmful action again. You spread thoughts of goodwill, love in all directions. So you see the importance of thought, because what you think, you are. If you are thinking about thoughts of things that you fear, if you think that, oh no, this is going to happen to me, oh no, I'm not making my standards, so again and again you're bringing the thoughts of anxiety, then you're not a person, you're just anxiety walking around the street and passing your anxiety to everyone around you're walking past the street. Okay, but if you're love, you're compassion, and you walk around the street, then you're benefiting people. Because, as I shared before, people can feel your energy. If you are very anxious people can feel it. And it's very strange, wherever sometimes I meet spiritual people or people in the Buddhist circle, I'll be like, oh yeah, so happy I'm making a new friend. But then when I see them, the moment I see them, I immediately feel their tension. Their tension, why? Because I don't know why spiritual people are so uptight. From the Tibetan Buddhists to Theravada Buddhists, I mean, I myself was also that uptight before. So if you're uptight, means you don't have an open heart or spacious mind. Okay, awakening consists of an open heart and open mind. Okay, your tension will lessen as you awaken. If your tension is no different from what the tension is from 5 years ago since you started on this spiritual path, that means you haven't really stepped into the spiritual path. Other qualities included in goodwill or metta. I prefer metta, so it will be forgiveness of self and others for unskillful speech and behavior. It's easier to forgive when one sees dependent origination, the 12 links. It's easier lah, but you don't have to if you can't. Okay, why is it easier? Because you see the wheel of karma. You see how people are reborn again and again, numerous times in a day, right? To be this unpleasant person. It's not their fault because old habits die hard. Because when you can see this in yourself, you will know how difficult it is for you to break out of your old habits. Then you will easily forgive others. So even if you don't see the 12 links of dependent origination, is fine. Just understanding how difficult it is for you to change. Okay, like I mentioned, right? If 5 years ago you think you're practicing meditation, virtue, and wisdom, and then you think you're doing very well, but after 5 years you're still so tense, and you realize then you're actually not getting anywhere. There you go. You see how difficult it is, how old habits die hard, how old habits can be brought to lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. If you have anxiety this life, it could go on lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So this is not to scare you, okay? Because I was very, very fervent with the Dharma because having anxiety scares me. I don't want it anymore, right? So this is aversion. I saw it. So instead of aversion, I have an open heart and I invite anxiety to be my friend, okay? That is how you expand and open your heart, right? You forgive. Forgiveness comes before giving love, goodwill, or metta to yourself or to another. Forgiveness is a key step, okay? Remember. Cultivating harmlessness by choosing your thoughts. So the Buddha, see, thoughts, intention, so important. Thus I meditated, diligent, keen, and resolute, determined lah, A sensual thought arose, meaning a thought where he wants to maybe eat something, sensual thought, to do your sixth sense base. Or then he understood this sensual thought has arisen in me. Okay, so maybe it's not time to eat, but he wants to eat something. So he realized this sensual thought has arisen in me. First, one knows the thought, understanding it in terms of the framework of the Four Noble Truths. It leads to hurting myself, hurting others, and hurting both. Okay lah, maybe it's not about eating. Maybe an unwholesome thought where he has, bad memories about the past. It came back. Okay, it came back and he thought about the person and he feels angry. Maybe negative thought. So having negative thought, how does it hurt yourself? Because you're the one experiencing it. As long as you experience negative thought, at this moment you are hurting yourself. It hurts others too. Why? Because you're actually a ball of energy walking around. And as long as you keep this anger in you, it will burst out someday at someone. Therefore, it hurts others too. It hurts both. So he realized this. It blocks wisdom. Why does it block wisdom? Because your mind is keep getting reborn into anxiety or tension, dukkha. So when your mind is stuck in anger or anxiety, it circles around. You cannot find a breakthrough in that thought. It blocks wisdom. It's on the side of anguish because it's suffering. It doesn't lead to extinguishment, meaning the letting go, the surrendering, the giving up of this negative thought. Then one reflects on the causal outcome, the cause of it, the cause of having this thought and feeling. What's the outcome? And then you see, oh, I'm hurting myself. Then it went away because you realize he's hurting himself. Yeah, it takes a long practice. When I was in my 20s, I tend to be very immature. I was impulsive, and I would think, oh, things are so unjust, so unfair, I'll hurt myself. And I had a lot of suffering. Then I think life is suffering. But now I realize, hey, I am the one hurting myself. Let it go, right? Then the suffering became lesser. So he said, thoughts are eradicated not by force or judgment, you see. You cannot judge yourself, cannot force yourself to push away the thought, but by reflection. Reflection is wisdom. When you know how to self-reflect is wisdom. So when I reflected, it leads to harming myself and others, it went away. Okay, then there's compassion. Okay, right. That is Majjhima Nikaya number 19, if you want to go and read more about it. So in the Mahayana school, there is Guan Yin, right? So Guan Yin is a Bodhisattva. So in the Theravada tradition, a Bodhisattva is one who is intent on awakening. Though the Mahayana called the Theravada a smaller vehicle because they don't care about others, teach others, which is not true, because any right path to awakening, whether it's Buddhist or Christian or whatever, it requires compassion. Meaning in the Mahayana school, okay, Bodhisattva, actually, I want to correct myself here. A Bodhisattva in the Tibetan tradition, Mahayana, I'm not so sure because I studied in Tibetan tradition. I would think it's also Mahayana, which is Northern school. They say, arouse your bodhicitta. Arouse your bodhicitta heart. It means, what is this? The determination to awaken. Arouse it, okay? Through reflection, through study, through meditation, okay? An additional meaning they put to it is one who gives up total liberation to return to help all sentient beings. Okay, so they took this from what the Buddha said in the early discourse, his statement to enlightened disciples who are arahants, go forth for the welfare of many, because when he had arahants, he sent the arahants out to teach, just like Jesus sent his 12 disciples out to teach. So you see the commonality in the right spiritual path to awakening to end of suffering requires both wisdom and compassion, love. Okay, so you must remember the teaching of not self. Since there is no fixed personality, self-awakening, that means your self-awakening, is the same as awakening for all beings. This is very hard for you to understand. If you remember, not self, non-self, there's no self here. You're just a ball of energy with no boundary. Your body is a temporary boundary, but it cannot really be a true boundary for the energy that you are, because energy is everywhere. So therefore, when so-called one person awakens, the energy can't help but reach everyone else. Okay, this is what it means to help liberate sentient beings. Since there's no real person here, the body is a temporary house, energy cannot have borders, therefore awakening cannot be individual. Okay, and what we mean by individual is a limited thought, but whatever it is, when you have awakened, you also awaken everyone. So I'll end with this slide. Okay, so we went through right understanding, so you must have understanding, then you develop compassion. Okay, right understanding through the Four Noble Truths, through the 12 links of dependent origination, then you will understand what is compassion and love. And through compassion and love, you bring it out into your speech, action, livelihood, even in your effort to meditate. So actually meditation is not a hardcore thing. You don't punish yourself in meditation. Meditation requires love and compassion too. Okay, so I'll stop here. Hope it's helpful, this session. Thank you everyone for listening.